So first, a little overview here. What we've realized after working in this space for the past 4 years with the DCM Foundation is that no one group can meet all cardiomyopathy patient needs. So there are a variety of groups that help cardiomyopathy patients and their families, as well as heart patients in general. And what we want to do is work together with other heart-related groups to provide you with the best resources and the most comprehensive programming and support that you can have. And so as part of that, this month, we're excited to welcome Mended Hearts and introduce you to their programs and so forth. And of course, for those of you coming to us from Mended Hearts, you'll get to know and learn about the DCM Foundation tonight as well. And then next month, we're going to welcome Women Heart in the same fashion. So cardiomyopathy is going to have a stronger voice when all of the groups come together in unison on behalf of patients and family members. Next slide. So tonight we're going to first hear from Mended Hearts, and Mandy's going to tell us about the amazing patient services they provide, including their peer support programs and advocacy, as well as groups and chapters all around the country. And then the DCM Foundation will hear from Greg Roof, our executive director, and our mission to provide hope and support to DCM patients and families. And then we're going to go into a little bit more about the ways that our two groups are working together to help cardiomyopathy patients. And we'll have a live Q&A at the end. Next slide. Great, so the first poll, who is attending tonight's webinar? This gives us a little bit of an idea who's on here. If we can push the poll forward, are you a cardiomyopathy patient, a family member or friend, a medical professional or industry professional? And if you're more than one, if you can choose whichever you most identify with for the purposes of the webinar. Great, and we'll end the poll and share the results. Great, so we have a nice group of patients and family members, which makes up the bulk, and then a few medical professionals. Excellent, thanks so much. Okay, next slide. So again, tonight's speakers are Mandy Sandkuhler. She is the Director of Partnerships and Communications for Mended Hearts. We're just so thrilled she could be with us tonight. We work very closely with her throughout the year. And Greg Roof, the Executive Director of the DCM Foundation and the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Awareness Consortium, which you'll learn more about if you haven't heard of that before. Next slide. So first, a little bit more about Mandy. In the 13 years she's worked for Mended Hearts, she's had the opportunity to support and serve volunteers, patients, and family members alike, all affected by heart disease. And in her current role as Director of Partnerships and Communications, she works with Mended Hearts partners and sponsors on various programs, funding opportunities, program design, and advocacy initiatives. She also oversees all Mended Hearts, Young Mended Hearts, and Little Mended Hearts chapters and groups, helping them grow and function. And I wasn't aware of that until just about a week ago. So it's really impressive, all the work that she does for patients and families. She also manages all Mended Hearts communication efforts for the organization, as well as volunteer communications. So without further ado, Mandy, we couldn't thank you enough for being here tonight. Let's introduce her and her deck. Thanks so much, Mandy. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Jan. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. You can see that okay?
Yep, it looks good.
Yeah, thank you.
And just a big thanks to Jan and Greg and the DCM Foundation. You are really such a strong supporter of other organizations, and that's so needed in this area because together we can serve patients and families so much better than we can alone. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to share what we do. And I'll go ahead and get started. So I'm here to talk about how we support people and family who are families who are living with and affected by all types of heart disease. And as Jayanne said, I've been with Mended Hearts for quite a few years now. I had the privilege of working with volunteers. That's why I've been here as long as I have, because I love working with volunteers and seeing the way they give back to make other people's lives easier. So thanks for having me. And with that, I'll go ahead and just let you know, I'm going to talk about our beginnings and then what we've been doing since 1951. We've been around a long time. Talk about our programs, our office in Europe and what we're doing there, our peer support, our volunteers and the visiting that we do, the educational resources and materials we put out. I'm going to talk about our advocacy program and then a fun awareness campaign. We do a lot of them, but the one I'm going to talk about tonight is my favorite. Briefly talk about partnerships, and then of course be available for questions at the end. And so this is kind of a funny slide to begin with. I know you're probably wondering why a little town called Osceola in Iowa is up on the screen, but this is where we got our beginnings back in the early 20th century. A man named Conrad Harkin was born in Osceola. He was an encyclopedia salesman. He was not a doctor. And he, in his spare time, read encyclopedias at night, and he would read them over and over until he realized that, hey, I think I know enough to become a doctor. And at that point in Iowa, you did not have to go to medical school. You just had to take a test. He took the test, he passed, and he became the first doctor in his little town in Osceola. And the house that you see on the slide there is where he opened his practice. I believe he served both animals and human patients on that first floor. And he and his family lived up on the second floor. And the reason that I bring this to you, because Conrad is the father to the father of heart surgery and the father of Mended Hearts. And his name is Dr. Dwight Harkin. So he grew up with his dad being a doctor in their local town, and he also wanted to become a doctor when he got older. And when he went into World War II, he went to school first, got his medical degree, and then served in World War II as a surgeon, as a heart surgeon, actually. So this picture was taken back around 1935, I think, just as he was training in the Army to get ready to go into World War II. And as I said, he is the father of Mended Hearts and cardiac surgery. So during the war, this is some of what he dealt with, and this is where he got his training. This is an actual X-ray of a soldier who was wounded in battle and became one of Dr. Harkin's patients. In his time in the war, he performed open heart surgery on over 130 wounded soldiers, and he did these surgeries using his fingers to find and remove the bullets. And there was no heart-lung machine at the time, and miraculously, all of the soldiers that Dr. Harkin performed this on survived. So he really got his training in the trenches. And when he finished up in the war, he moved to Boston, settled there, and became the only heart surgeon in the nation at the time. He knew every heart patient and trained every heart surgeon during this time in what would have been probably the late 40s and early 50s. He was the first to have repeated success with heart surgery and became known as the father of heart surgery. He had a lot of accomplishments, but these are just a few. He thought of the concept of intensive care and opened the first intensive care unit in the nation. And he, with his team, invented the first heart-lung machine. It was the size of a Volkswagen, much larger even than the one pictured here. So he really is an icon for so many cardiologists. The birth of Mended Hearts happened when Dr. Harkin got together with a group of his 4 heart patients sitting around together and realized that, hey, we are doing better in our recovery by talking to each other. As awesome as you are, Dr. Harkin, you are never going to get it the way we get it. And so what they said was, it's great to be alive. And Dr. Harkin added, and to help others. And with that, Mended Hearts was born in 1951 and incorporated in 1955 in Boston. So in that time, from 1951 through today, I can't believe next year we're going to be 74 years old. But we have grown to be active in 33 countries around the world. We have over 100,000 members. We have 200 chapters and groups around the country, and I'm going to talk about the difference between those chapters and groups in just a few minutes. We work in over 450 hospitals and clinics throughout the country. And the reason we know this is because we do annual reports every year, and we ask our groups and chapters to submit information like what hospitals are you working with and what clinics. And so in the 2023 annual report, we learned the number was over 450. Our international headquarters are based in Albany, Georgia. That's down in the South Georgia. So keep good thoughts for them during the hurricane that's headed straight for them. And then Mended Hearts Europe is now based in Geneva, Switzerland. And I'll talk a little bit about that office as well. Now, I'm showing you these logos, not because you maybe care about what our logos have looked like through the years, but because they really illustrate the change that heart surgery and the cardiac world has undergone in the last 70 years. Our logo back in 1954 is that little pin with the stitch, and all the way up through 2002 and beyond, you can see that there's always that stitch, there's always that zipper across the heart to indicate that most heart surgeries were open heart, and that's what your chest was going to look like when you were done. Well, more and more we are seeing, even from 2015 to now, heart surgery looks very different. It's a lot more intervention based. People spend a lot less time, thankfully, in the hospital. And so we wanted our logo to encompass everyone and to include everyone, no matter what type of procedure they were going through, whether it was open heart or, day surgery. We are here for everyone. And so that looping logo you see with 2015 really, just represents who we are now. And our mission statement is to inspire hope and improve the quality of life of heart patients and their families through ongoing peer-to-peer support, education, and advocacy. So really, that's what we do every day. We support, educate, and advocate for patients through peer-to-peer. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but after Alcoholics Anonymous, we are the second oldest peer-to-peer support organization in the country. So we're really proud of that. We have 3 different programs. Our oldest one is the Mended Hearts program, which began back in 1951 with those patients. The Mended Hearts program typically engages adults who are ages 55 plus, but we certainly have many adults who are younger than that. They're living with all types of heart disease, and it's their caregivers as well. Our motto is, it's great to be alive and to help others. And Mended Hearts chapters make up the majority of our chapters and groups around the country. They do things like hold support group meetings. They hold education-based meetings. They fundraise. They hold social events where they get together and connect. They also, importantly, visit with patients at the bedside in hospital face-to-face to give those patients who are at their most vulnerable that connection and support that they really need and that their caregivers need as well. To say, hey, look where I am now. This could be you. The way you're feeling is not going to last forever. You are going to get better. You are going to feel better. Our Mended Little Hearts program began in 2004, so it's experienced its 20-year anniversary this year. And it was started by a Mended Hearts member, Tita Hutchins, who decided that children who are born with heart disease and their families need support too. So these children are children living with congenital heart defects, and they were born with a structural issue to their heart. So they can be fixed, but they're never going to be cured. They're going to be living with heart disease in some form for the rest of their life. And so Mended Little Hearts is there to support those families and those children as they grow older. And their motto is Little Hearts Hold Big Hopes. And we are, I'm happy to say, seeing children with CHD live so much longer, living full lives because of some of the treatments and therapies that have come along over the last 10 to 15 years. And then finally, Young Mended Hearts began at a local level in 2015 and nationally was implemented in 2021. And that's to address the fact that there are more and more young people living with heart disease. We're seeing more 20 and 30-year-olds who are having heart attacks, who are living with heart failure, who are people living with cardiomyopathy, who are maybe diagnosed at a younger age, and now they're living with this condition for 40 or 50 years. And so how do you live with that and have a family, have children, have jobs? The type of support that those patients and families need is going to look different from what someone who's 65 or 70 may need in terms of support and education. So those are our 3 programs. And then Mended Hearts Europe supports all 3 of those programs. They are based in Geneva, Switzerland, and they serve Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And they are trying to find ways to support patients and families who may not be getting the support they need. There are a lot of great organizations in Europe, but they aren't in every country. There are big pockets of populations that aren't getting the support they need. And so Mended Hearts Europe is trying to partner with organizations in those countries to bring support and education in any way that we can. And so they are a year old and they are flourishing already. Also hoping to expand into Africa and the Middle East. So now I just want to tell you a little bit about the importance of peer-to-peer support, social connection, emotional support, knowing there's someone there who understands, knowing you are not alone on this journey. Peer support is empowering and it's educational. And for many of you on this webinar, you know that you're a part of the DCM Foundation and you're a part of it for a reason, because you know how valuable peer support is. And just going into the specifics, you know that it makes you feel less lonely. It can help you feel less depressed and less anxious. It helps you create those meaningful connections. During COVID, we had so many chapters and volunteers and groups who just felt like this. They felt it here because they could not connect with other patients the way they were used to doing. We had so many patients who visited in the hospital and they didn't know what to do with themselves because they got as much out of those visits as the patients did. And so we know those meaningful connections matter. We have visitors who've been around for 20 years in this organization because it makes a difference in their lives. It can improve physical health. It can improve understanding of medication, why it's so important to take them. Because when you're in those monthly meetings and you're learning about disease education, how to manage heart disease, you're also learning from others about how sticking with their meds really helped them conquer this condition and help them manage it, how it helped keep them out of the hospital. And so it's imperative that people have these peer-to-peer connections. It can create more confidence in making decisions and communicating with healthcare professionals. It provides that social support to help people stick to those lifestyle changes. It helps patients recognize and address family and community health issues like, hey, maybe my family isn't eating the way I need to eat in order to manage my heart condition. And so even if you're not getting that support at a family or friend level, you can get that support from your peer organization. And it increases access to health information and resources for everyone, because we know that there are a ton of disparities in this country. And one of the ways we combat that is through education and awareness that foundations like DCM Foundation are doing and the work that Mended Hearts is doing. Different ways of providing peer support. We try to get out there in every way we can. So through telephone, through video chat, through email, through text message, especially our Mended Little Hearts groups, in-person support like our Mended Hearts chapters do, online support groups through our community groups and our local Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram accounts. Our heart failure support group that we do monthly. If there's anyone in this call who is not only living with dilated cardiomyopathy, but now living with heart failure also, we have a dedicated online group that's really well attended because it's doing a great job of supporting people who are living with this condition. And it's free. If you need more information about that, please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you. We're on Facebook. We are in discussion communities on our website. We have lots of educational materials as well. Our My Heart Visit is our visiting program. It involves a call center that some of our members work in and make dedicated calls, professional calls out of it daily. We have a heartline that people can call. It's the 188-HEART-99 that you see there on the screen if you need a visit. We have our Welcome Home program for people living with heart failure and transitioning home. It's free. It connects you with another heart failure patient who is an accredited visitor. We're going to be doing Welcome Home CHD, and we're going to be doing Welcome Home HCM starting soon. We have our website, multiple websites actually. And as I said on the last slide, we have our discussion communities and we have our trained visitors. So we have a lot to offer anyone who needs any type of support. And our volunteers, who are the accredited visitors, have to go through annual reaccreditation, and new visitors have to go through a 3-hour training. They're trained on empathy and active listening, privacy, confidentiality, and HIPAA, rules of conduct, of course, no medical advice and no comparing, as well as many other things. And so if you are someone who is living with dilated cardiomyopathy and you think that you might want to visit and connect with other heart patients, whether they are heart failure or other types of cardiomyopathy, we don't limit it in our general program to just specific conditions. So you could be someone living with dilated cardiomyopathy and visiting with someone who has another condition. So if you're interested in finding out more, please let me know. And diversity sensitivity is a big one that we've also been training our visitors on. Who can volunteer to give support? Heart patients, including adults who are living with CHD, caregivers, as long as they are visiting alongside a heart patient. So you could have a heart patient in a room visiting with another heart patient and a caregiver visiting with a caregiver. They do have to be a member of Mended Hearts, and they do have to complete the visitor training. And just some of our highlights from our 2023 annual report that we're super proud of. We did 15 Zoom trainings for visitors last year. We have almost 1,000 accredited visitors. 392 of those are virtual visitors. So you certainly don't have to be in a hospital visiting. You can do it over the phone or through email. And we did almost a total of 200,000 visits last year. Those are in person and virtual together. So really proud. We took a dip in after COVID, but we're coming back up now that we're back in the hospitals again. And in terms of educational materials, what we've got out there, as I mentioned earlier, we cover all types of heart disease, whether it's, someone even living with hypertension or diabetes, all the way to someone who's had a transplant, and all types of cardiomyopathies and valve disease and heart attack and heart failure. So we do it all. We've put out recently an ATTR-CM discussion guide, genetics and family history, which would be very relevant to the people who are on this call today. HCM discussion guide, an Lp(a), if you're living with high cholesterol and statins aren't working, you might want to have your Lp(a) levels checked. Familiar hypercholesterolemia discussion guide, fluid management if you're living with heart failure, and biomarker testing in heart failure. So what we don't have as much, and I have to say DCM Foundation does such an amazing job with their genetics and their genetic testing and just their knowledge of genetic testing and what it entails in clinical trials. So I have been trying to learn from both Greg and Jayanne whenever I have an opportunity to be in a room with them. So you are lucky as a foundation to have their knowledge. In terms of new educational webinars that we've put out there, we had a great one on HCM last week. Our advocate, Gigi, talked about so many things. She's been living with HCM since she was diagnosed when she was 2 years old, which I think is unheard of given the amount of misdiagnosis and underdiagnosis that goes on. The fact that she's known for 60 years she has this condition. But she has experience with PTSD, clinical trials, experience with, what was the word I was thinking? Genetic testing, trying to convince her family to get genetic testing, which is very relevant to everyone on this call. And she had some really innovative ways that she was able to get some of her family members who were hesitant to have genetic testing, how she persuaded them to do it. And so if you have the opportunity, go to the Mended Hearts YouTube channel and take a look at that webinar. She has a powerful story that brought some of us almost to tears. Our ATTR-CM, if you have an interest in that, we had the opportunity to interview Don Chaney, who is a basketball star and basketball coach, and his wife They were both on to talk about their journey living with ATTR-CM. They've been married for 56 years, and this diagnosis just hit them 4 years ago. We learned a lot on that conversation. And if any of you are interested in learning more on inflammation and heart health, it's a big topic out there. It's an important topic, and we have a webinar on it tomorrow. You can register for that. Also, if you need that information, let me know. I'm happy to put it in the chat after I'm done speaking. And now to our advocacy and action network. It's our third pillar. And boy, I have to tell you, we've worked hard as a staff team to get this up to where we think it needed to be in terms of trainings, in terms of our advocacy partner, in terms of the work that we're going to be doing. So we sign on and support multiple priorities, multiple acts. So far, I think we've supported over 30 this year in 2024, but we do narrow it down when it comes to what we can really focus on. And those are the 6 you'll see on the screen: the Inflation Reduction Act, the Safe Step Act, alternative funding programs and the PBMs, Medicaid Advantage and Part D redesign, expanded medical coverage for the anti-obesity medications, and then the Congenital Heart Futures Reauthorization Act. So these are the 6 that we're focusing on, and I'm sure some of these are very important to you as well who are on this call. Some of the things we're doing is we put out a monthly advocacy newsletter informing our members of changes or movement on legislation and opportunities to get involved. We do training that empowers our advocates to be organizational speakers and advocacy speakers and champions. We just had a training in July to get speakers ready and advocates ready to go out and meet with their legislators when they were home for the August recess, and how to talk to those legislators and share what's important to you as patients. We have quarterly webinars that are focused on our priorities and legislation. We held one in August that talked about our 6 priorities. We'll be holding another one in early December, talking about changes that might happen given the election and whatever happens there. And so if you want to tune in our monthly national newsletter, we put that sign up information. You can sign up for that for free if you want on our website. And then we continue to share our messaging in Heartbeat magazine that we put out quarterly, our blogs, our social media posts, newsletters, etc. So we're really working hard to get the word out. And then this always makes me smile. We have been doing a Rock Your Scar awareness campaign for the last 10 years. This was our 10-year anniversary, and it was started to raise awareness of congenital heart disease, because until you have a child born with this disease, you don't really know what it is. And there is a lot that goes into being a young person, and having a scar like the ones you see on the screen in front of you can lead to a lot of anxiety, a lot of feeling like you don't belong. And we started this campaign to empower our families, to empower our kiddos and our adults who are living with this condition. And so these are the winners from last year's campaign. I need to share the numbers with you because they were really impressive as our 10th year anniversary. 681 entries. We had just over 150,000 people vote. And we had almost 1 million impressions last year. It was pretty impressive. It means that almost 1 million people interacted with this campaign in some way. They voted, they uploaded their photo, they shared it with someone. They now know what CHD is and what it means to these people. So you can see their beautiful photos, and our families are out there doing just what they want to do. They're not letting CHD stop them. And then finally, these are some of our partnerships. I didn't put our individual organizational partnerships like the one we have with GCAC and with the Dilated Cardiomyopathy Foundation, or like the work we're doing with Women Heart. But these are some of the partnerships you'll see on our website. Just trying to get out there like DCM Foundation and partner with as many groups as we can to spread the word, to spread the power and empowerment. So that's all I have. I'm going to go ahead and stop share now, but you can contact me about any of this information at mandy.sandkuhler@mendedhearts.org.
Thank you so much, Mandy. I am blown away. I don't think I had a real full grasp of all that you folks do. And I mean, the number of volunteers, just that alone is such a testament to the amazing work you're doing. And then all of the advocacy work that you do. And again, this is why our groups all need to work together, where we've got more of a specialty now in the genetics piece of cardiomyopathy, and you guys are leading a lot in the advocacy areas. I mean, working together is really the way we all need to go. So thank you so much. And some of that information will be in the follow-up email I will send tomorrow. Great. So let's continue on, and then we're going to have Mandy back on at the end for the Q&A portion. So next up, we have the DCM Foundation. Some of you may be familiar with us. So let's go to the next slide, and I'd love to introduce you, for those who don't know, to Greg Roof, our Executive Director of the DCM Foundation, and we call GCAC, which is the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Awareness Consortium, which we launched about 1.5 years ago now. And for those who don't know Greg's story, in 2014, Greg was diagnosed with DCM, and he needed an ICD. And through genetic testing, he then learned that his cardiomyopathy was caused by a genetic mutation, and a number of his relatives who then also were tested and learned that they also carry genetic mutations that can cause DCM. And in 2017, Greg retired from his work as an entrepreneur, and he launched the DCM Foundation, working full-time then to help bring education, hope, and resources to DCM patients and their families. In 23, we launched the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Awareness Consortium, and the goal of that is to increase awareness about the link between genetics and cardiomyopathy, and we'll talk more about that shortly. But our hope is that by raising awareness about genetics and cardiomyopathy, that more research will be done, and maybe one day a cure will be found. But in the meantime, at least maybe additional therapies can be found to help treat cardiomyopathy of various types. And of interest is the fact that Greg kind of has been through it all. He actually had a heart transplant on July 15th, 2021, just over 3 years ago. And thankfully, he's been doing amazing work ever since. So without further ado, let's continue on. And Greg, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I will turn the floor over to you, and you can share the next slides.
Great. Thank you, Jan. And thanks so much, Mandy, for that wonderful presentation about Mended Hearts. It's such a great organization. Actually, when I was diagnosed in 2014, the first organization that I joined was Mended Hearts. Still a member, still a contributor to the organization today. And I actually did hospital visits, was trained at hospital visits with them. So I do know firsthand of the wonderful things that Mended Hearts is doing and can help you as a heart patient. I also recommend, before I get into the DCM Foundation, that I think it's important and good for patients, if you have heart conditions, to belong to multiple organizations like Mended Hearts. They have a ton of chapters where you can meet people in person around the country, around the world. We even go as specific as gene-specific Facebook groups. So I think again, it's important if you have a heart disease or disease that you really look and seek out from multiple groups, because each one can specialize and help you in different areas. For the DCM Foundation, and the next thing I want to do a shout out real quick too before I get going is our dear friend at the LaminateCardiac.org in Omaha, Nebraska, Sean Pinniger, is home from the hospital today from a successful heart transplant about 1.5 weeks ago. And Sean, welcome home, and we're so happy that you're healthy again. Godspeed on your recovery. The DCM Foundation was founded in late 2018 for the purpose of providing mission. The mission is to provide hope and support to patients with dilated cardiomyopathy through education, advocacy, and research. We also focus in everything that we do is creating better health equity for all patients. And that's a real key goal of ours. We realize that Unfortunately, because of geographic, socioeconomic reasons, especially in genetics and cardiomyopathy and good treatment, not everyone is created equal. And we need to work really, really hard in creating the best health equity for everybody to treat cardiomyopathy and genetic cardiomyopathy. Next slide, please. The DCM Foundation has basically 3 pillars that we operate under. Again, we talk about the hope that we just, or our mission, which is the top part of the picture. The 3 pillars that we have, one is information education. We have a monthly newsletter, webinars pretty much on a monthly basis, website. We'll talk about, we have the DCM Foundation website, and we'll talk a bit later. We also have the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Awareness Consortium website. And we also would like to add that with our commitment to health equity, both the DCM Foundation and the GCAC websites have full Spanish versions with them. And you probably get bothered a lot by our social media ads that you see quite often, but have a real strong social media presence. JN runs this area and does a wonderful job of it. So the other patient family support, second pillar that we have support groups. We've really been focusing heavily, since we're a newer organization getting rolling and started during COVID. It's pretty difficult to do in person and actually get sort of weekly, monthly support groups meeting. So we're focusing a lot of our support groups on gene-specific groups, different types of online groups. We find it's a lot easier to start from scratch and to grow. We have an online annual conference. Again, I think you'll see, the DCM Foundation website is really great to really understanding dilated cardiomyopathy, the disease, treatment, and where to get help. One thing that we say quite often in helping patients is people ask us, if I've been diagnosed with dilated cardiomyopathy, where do I get the best help, best care? And I think it's just as simple as going to Google search and saying, look for a heart failure center near me or a heart transplant center near me. Just type those searches in and you'll find, if you can find a qualified heart failure center or heart transplant center, we believe that you'll get, very, very likely that you'll get good care. The third pillar where we're spending a lot of our time on now is about genetic awareness. We're really driven to assist academic research, to assist medical professionals, and to assist the biopharma community in helping to develop life-saving genetic drug therapies faster. And we're doing this through, education and awareness. We'll talk about the GCAC website. So if you go to geneticcardiomyopathy.org, geneticcardiomyopathy.org is the GCAC website. And we do webinars. We have the website. We're working hard to educate doctors and nurses. It's amazing, but the vast majority of cardiologists and those involved in the heart failure arena don't really understand genetics, the role they play, and how treatment should differ if you've been diagnosed with genetic cardiomyopathy. Again, we also work with, and we'll talk about that later, like Mended Hearts and other groups, 6 other groups. We work together as part of the GCAC consortium. And again, we run it's a nonprofit 501(c) business, but we're also, working hard on the infrastructure to make sure that we run a good organization so that we're sustainable for a long time. Next slide, please. Again, and we talk a little bit more about the 3 pillars. I spent a lot of time on this, so I can probably gloss over these. But when we talk about genetic cardiomyopathy, pillar 3, again, we're really focusing. There's a lot of research going on right now in genetic cardiomyopathy. We know there's about 60 to 70 genes involved in genetic cardiomyopathy. There will be more uncovered as more research is done. There's a ton of research that's very active, that's growing, and all sorts of great developments are being discovered in that arena. We also know that instead of us just doing dilated cardiomyopathy genetics, we decided to work with all groups, all types of cardiomyopathy, in looking at genetic cardiomyopathy, why we formed GCAC. which includes dilated cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic, arrhythmogenic, restrictive LVNC. When you look at cardiomyopathy, you look at the genes, a gene can manifest in some of those different arenas, DCM, HCM, ACM. So we thought it important to look at that cardiomyopathy or genetic cardiomyopathy on a cardiomyopathy-wide basis. The one area that we're really focusing on trying to help is that, all the current research is saying that up to, and probably around 50%, 5-10 years later, that it's going to be higher. The number is going to be more than 50%, but cardiomyopathy is caused by genetic mutations. But right now, there's been a number of studies that show only 1% of diagnosed cardiomyopathy patients get genetically tested. And that's a real problem. And we're working really, really hard through GCAC, through Mended Hearts, and the other groups to be able to bring more awareness to that. Next slide, please. So that's why we created the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Awareness Consortium. Next slide. With the Genetic Cardiomyopathy Consortium, again, if you go to geneticcardiomyopathy.org, we would love for you, if you loved ones, friends, or family, or you just want to get involved, we have the GCAC Advocacy Army. We go back to that. Don't move the slides, but we talk about only 1% of the people have been genetically tested. Patients need to advocate for themselves to have the cardiology community to do more genetic testing. We need to raise awareness not only with other patients and family members, the general community, but also with the general cardiology community. So we have, you can look at the Advocacy Army at geneticcardiomyopathy.org. We have a toolkit to help you spread the word about genetics and cardiomyopathy. We would love to see in the next 5 years, every person diagnosed with idiopathic cardiomyopathy, as the guidelines say in the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, that they get tested like the guidelines say they do. And again, we need you to help spread the word so we can win this fight. Next slide, please. What's happening in the near future? We're also creating a GCAC patient registry, launching December of this year. Again, we want to get more people tested. We also want to get patients registered so that they can identify themselves for future research studies and clinical trials. Again, it's really critical that patients are involved in advocating for the disease, for getting genetically tested, and participating in research studies and clinical trials. We will be a force, and we can create positive change within the industry. With this registry, we're working with a group called NORD, a rare disease organization. They currently have registries, I think, approaching 60 different organizations like GCAC. And the information that and it's a nonprofit group, which we feel very, very comfortable with. The registry includes demographic information, genetic testing results, medical history, and family history. So be watching in the next few months as we launch for information on our genetic cardiomyopathy registry. Next slide, please. We also have, where Mended Hearts has done so many wonderful things for so many people with such support. We are serving people more on a bit more of a micro basis, we could say. We tend to find people that have genetic cardiomyopathy also like getting support. You obviously like people with Mended Hearts with heart problems. You also, with the subgroups for the Mended Hearts, like people with heart failure, different types of heart disease that are effective. And we also we find that when people are afflicted with genetic cardiomyopathy, since the disease will react many times very similarly with people with the same genetic mutation, people like to join, communicate with, and get support with people with, the certain gene that's causing they and their family's cardiomyopathy. We've got 10 Facebook groups together today. We'll launch 3 more in 2024, and we hope to launch 20 more in 2025. Next slide, please. Again, in 2023, the GCAC campaign, we really focused on better educating patients, helping to provide a more easier and more affordable path for genetic testing, counseling, and educating the cardiology medical community. We're still working on those in 2024. And along with the registry, we have a lot of more exciting new things that you'll be seeing from us very, very soon. Again, the GCAC website is geneticcardiomyopathy.org. And as mentioned before, Mended Hearts has been a very, very positive, active member of this organization. Next slide. Again, I think with Mandy, Mended Hearts, the wonderful history and the things that they've done for so many patients, and certainly for the DCM Foundation, Genetic Cardiomyopathy, what we really are trying to bring forth and all that we're doing here is to create hope for the future. We know right now that there is no cure for cardiomyopathy, and it seems that gene therapy is potentially the best hope for a true cure. No guarantees, but it seems like it's probably the most likely and the closest curative therapy to us. And so we're focusing a lot of our times on that, a lot of our energy, a lot of our money on that. And we're hoping that if you have cardiomyopathy, you've been diagnosed with idiopathic cardiomyopathy, they don't know what came from. We hope that you, and if you have a positive genetic testing result, your family members get genetically tested. It will save lives and help quicken the pace for gene and therapy development. Next slide, please. Thank you again for attending. Thank you so much, Mandy. Thank you, JN, Justine behind the scenes. We'll now go to Q&A.
No, thank you both. I think, that little slide that said better together, I think it's really powerful how when we all work together, the kind of impact and support and voice we can have for patients and family members. So someone did ask for the webinar information about tomorrow night, Mandy, and I think maybe if you can just tell them where they can find it, and then if you want to email it to me, I can also include it in the follow-up email I send tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been in our newsletters. I don't know if it's on our website because, to be honest, we've had so many webinars recently, it's been hard to keep them up there. So JN, I will send it to you. I do have it. I don't think I can put it in Q&A. I don't know if that's possible or not, but
I think you can answer live, but only to one individual. But so if you then want to also send it to me, I'll include it in the follow-up email that I'll send tomorrow, along with the other resources and the webinar recording.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And then Sandra has a question. Where specifically is your Westchester chapter located?
Yes. So that is, it looks like it's we work at the Penn Heart and Vascular Center in Chester County. I assume, is she talking about Westchester, PA? I know she can't talk, but yeah.
I would assume so.
Yeah, so Sandra, if you're interested, can you email me, or can JN, can you get me connected with Sandra? Happy
Absolutely.
to pass along the contact information for that chapter.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. Hello from Toronto, Canada. Okay, there's a fellow friend. Incredible presentation. I'm a young heart attack and stroke survivor living with HFrEF since 2015. How often are you holding these online patient engagement training sessions? I'd love to get involved. And this is Aaron.
And is that to me and the work we're doing? Yes. So Aaron, we are doing if you are interested in learning more about becoming a Mended Hearts volunteer, I'd love to talk with you one-on-one, like as a visitor. If you're interested in the heart failure monthly support group meetings that are online, I can send you the information for that. That may be on our website actually, but I would, if JN can send out my contact information tomorrow and you reach out to me by email, we can schedule a call. Because I'm Canadian too, and so is Justine, and she's in Toronto, and my son's in Toronto, so yay for Canadians.
I think we're outnumbered, Greg. I don't know.
What is it?
Oh, love folks from Toronto. No, that's great. Okay, thank you for your questions. Are there any other questions? I will just add a question that had come in earlier. How do you envision the future of patient support for various heart conditions? I'm assuming, I mean, all of these programs and everything, I mean, there's so much to manage, but do you think it's just going to continue to expand around the globe? Is there a certain initiative? I mean, a lot of people talk about AI, and that's a whole nother topic, but I think AI can never take the place of individuals answering patient questions, no matter what kind of tool is built.
Yeah, and to that, the reason patient support exists is because you may even have like an amazing family and friend group, but they're never going to understand what you're going through, as I'm sure Greg can attest to that, like someone else who's gone through that exact same journey. So AI is never going to be able to replicate that. And it makes my head hurt. I am not technically inclined. So I just stay on the written, like my own brain doing all the work. I know there's advantages to it, but for us, I think it's just meeting people where they are. That's the main thing. And whether that is partnering with other organizations, whether it's making inroads into underserved communities and finding the ways that those communities need support, that's really important for the work we're doing, both in the US and around the world. And then just making sure that you are there to connect with people however they need it, whether it's in person, give them that option, hybrid meetings, online only, making your messaging and materials available every single way you can.
Excellent. No, it's exciting. I think you folks are well poised to do that. I will just also ask, and I know some of the answer to this, but Greg, if people are interested in learning more about getting genetically tested, do you want to speak to that briefly? And what are the advantages of learning the gene that you have?
Yeah, so great question. First and foremost, we always say you should go to your cardiologist or your physician to get genetically tested. And again, we can go to the GCAC website. We've got flyers that you can take. I mean, again, the guidelines are if you have been diagnosed, they don't know what caused your cardiomyopathy. The guidelines are you should be genetically tested. But always go to your physician first, go to your cardiologist. Again, a big problem is a lot of cardiologists don't understand this yet, even though they should, and don't have the means for genetic testing and genetic counseling. So go to them first. You can also, you can go to our website, GCAC, and click on getting genetically tested. We're working now with a group called Genome Medical, where you can get genetically tested and get genetic counseling. Which is real important. You can go to the NSGC, National Society of Genetic Counselors website if you have questions, and you can find a genetic counselor near you to have a discussion with. And the reasons for are pretty dramatic, actually. I think number one, if you have been diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, idiopathic, they don't know where it came from, cardiomyopathy, when you get if you have certain gene mutations can cause dangerous arrhythmias, like my family and mine, lamin A. And so, and there are probably about 30% of the genes that cause cardiomyopathy can cause dangerous arrhythmias. And so if they know that, and you're tested positive for one of their genes, you can get an ICD or some type of device. So if you go into arrhythmia, the chance of surviving is 99%. Plus, if you don't, it could be a fatal outcome. That's really important. And insurers do pay. If you have a genetic cardiomyopathy gene that causes mutation, insurers actually are very good about paying for those devices. So number one, could save your life. Number two is if you have that genetic mutation or you've been diagnosed and you have a dangerous mutation that can cause dangerous arrhythmias, it's really, really critical that other family members, all first-degree family members, are genetically tested because they could be at risk. So by doing so, one, you could save your life, and two, you could save the lives of your loved ones, which I am quite certain everyone on this webinar would be very interested in doing.
No, fantastic. It's very powerful. I think I've seen in some groups people say, what good is it knowing your gene if they don't have a solution yet? And it's like, no. It changes the course of treatment potentially, and it could save your life.
ICDs, but also drug therapy too can be a little bit different.
Absolutely. No,
But your
thank you.
cardiologist may tell you that it doesn't change, but that, again, the vast majority just aren't up to speed on this yet, so.
You can also go to the DCM Foundation website and type in "find a specialist," and you can find a heart failure specialist near you. You want to make sure you're going to someone who specializes in cardiomyopathy, not just your general corner cardiologist. We can't stress that enough. So again, thank you both for being on tonight. Justine, let's share in the deck. We just have a few more wrap-up slides. And thank you all for staying on with us here tonight. For more information, and this will also be in the email I'll send out tomorrow, for more information about Mended Hearts, you can go to their website, mendedhearts.org. The DCM Foundation is, of course, dcmfoundation.org. And to learn more about GCAC, genetics and cardiomyopathy, go to geneticcardiomyopathy.org. Next slide. Oh, by the way, also follow us on social media because there's a lot of information that comes out regularly on social media that's not on the websites. Huge thank you to our corporate sponsors, whose names you see there at the top, and all of our patient partner groups, one of which is the amazing Mended Hearts. Thank you again, Mandy, and our additional partners listed there at the bottom. Next slide. Again, all working together is the way that we're going to make a difference. And to that end, please join us for next month's webinar when we will be joined by Women Heart. And the topic is supporting women with cardiomyopathy. So, spread the word. And for all of those women in your lives with cardiomyopathy, please make sure that they know about this and can tune in. Next slide. So thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you so much, Mandy and Greg. Mandy, we just so appreciate your partnership with Mended Hearts and all that you do for patients and families. And thank you, Justine, as always, behind the scenes helping us with Zoom. So hopefully we'll see you next month. Be well and take care. And that's it for tonight. Take care now.